The night was cold and silent on the edge of the colony world. A hard wind blew across the endless white ground, carrying sharp pieces of ice that stung any exposed skin. Inside a small wooden house stood Aaron, a human man who had chosen to live far away from the noise of the colony city. He liked the quiet, or at least he thought he did. But sometimes, in the deep hours of night, the silence felt like it was swallowing him whole. Aaron was sitting near the old heater, reading an old digital book when he heard it, soft, weak knocking on the metal door. At first he thought it was the wind, but then it came again, faint and uneven. Knock, pause, knock. He frowned and set his book down. No one ever came out here. The nearest neighbor was almost 10 miles away. He stood up slowly, every step heavy with caution. The storm outside was getting worse, and opening the door could let in freezing air. Still, something about the sound pulled him. He walked to the door, unlocked it, and opened it just a little. The freezing wind rushed in, cutting across his face. And there, standing in the snow, was a tiny figure. It was a child. She looked no older than 6, maybe 7. Her skin was pale silver with soft patterns glowing faintly under the moonlight. Her big eyes were bright like molten gold but full of tears. Her thin arms were wrapped around herself, shivering so violently that she could barely stand. Her clothes were torn and soaked with melting snow. Aaron's heart stopped. This was no human child, she was alien. For a second, Aaron just stared. He had seen aliens before, of course. The colony world had many species, but never like this, and never alone, and never at his door in the middle of the night. The child lifted her head, lips trembling, and whispered something. The words were broken and strange, but he caught one sound clearly. Help. Aaron didn't think, he moved. He stepped outside, lifted the small alien girl gently into his arms, and rushed back inside. The moment the door closed, the wind's scream was cut off, replaced by the quiet hum of the heater. The child's skin was like ice. Her tiny body was light, almost weightless. She didn't fight him. She didn't cry out. She just laid her head against his shoulder like she had no strength left. Aaron placed her on the soft couch near the fire, grabbed thick blankets, and wrapped them around her. He made warm water in a small cup and held it to her lips. She drank in small, shaky sips as if each swallow took all her energy. He kept his voice low, soft. It's all right. You're safe now. She blinked at him slowly. There was fear in her eyes, but also something else, something like hope. Aaron checked her body. No wounds, just cold, very, very cold. He rubbed her hands gently to bring warmth back. He knew he should contact the colony's outpost office to report this, but something in him refused. He had no idea who had left her out there or what danger she had run from. All he knew was that she needed warmth, not questions. When she finally spoke, her voice was so soft he almost missed it. "Oh, Lyra," she said, tapping her chest weakly. "Lyra," Aaron repeated, and her eyes brightened just a little. She tried to ask something in her language, then pointed to him. "Aaron," he said. She nodded, her eyelids drooping. She was falling asleep. Aaron tucked the blankets around her tighter. He placed one of his old stuffed blankets near her feet and turned the heater a little warmer. The small girl curled into the couch, safe for the first time in who knew how long. Aaron sat back in the chair across from her, just watching. He told himself this was only for tonight. Just until the storm passed. Then he would contact the outpost. Then someone else would take her. That would be the smart thing. The safe thing. But as he watched her tiny chest rise and fall, something twisted inside him. This wasn't just some creature. This was a child who had been thrown into the snow like trash. Someone had abandoned her, and she had come to his door like it was the last door left in the universe. He didn't know why she had chosen this house. He didn't know why she had survived long enough to reach him. But he knew one thing. If he had opened the door 1 minute later, she would have died. The thought made his chest ache. Outside, the storm screamed and roared. Inside, the little alien girl named Lyra slept, safe under his blankets. Aaron sat silently through the night, eyes heavy, mind racing. He was just one human alone on a frozen world. He had no family, no one waiting for him. He had chosen that life, and yet as the night stretched on, one strange thought would not leave his mind. Maybe he wasn't alone anymore. The storm had passed, but its memory still lived in the silent world outside Aaron's small house. The white snow stretched to the horizon like frozen waves, glittering in the pale morning sun. Inside, warmth hummed gently from the heater, and the smell of hot grain porridge filled the air. Lyra sat at the wooden table, her small silver hands holding the spoon clumsily. She moved slowly, carefully, as if every sound might break something fragile inside her. Aaron watched her from across the table. He tried not to stare, but it was hard to look away. Only 3 days had passed since the night he found her. 3 days, and she had already changed the silence in his house. It was no longer the silence of emptiness. It was the silence of two hearts quietly learning how to be near each other. Yet something in her never relaxed. She laughed when he told her small jokes. She clapped her hands when he turned on old music from Earth. She even danced once, her feet moving in quick little circles, but it always ended the same. The laughter faded. The glow in her golden eyes dimmed, and then the shadows came back. They lived deep behind her eyes. Like old ghosts she was too small to carry but too scared to let go. At night, Aaron sometimes woke to find her sitting up on the couch, clutching the small pendant she wore around her neck. It was made of dark metal shaped like a teardrop, and faint light ran across its surface like living veins. She would whisper to it in her language, soft words that sounded like broken songs. When he asked about it, she would freeze, then hide it under her blanket, pretending she had not heard. Aaron stopped asking. He could tell something had hurt her. Something deep. Children did not hide like that unless someone had taught them to. Each day he tried to make her world softer. He taught her how to feed the little garden machine by the window. He showed her how to talk to the house's old cleaning bot, which made her giggle when it bumped into furniture. He made her tiny mittens from scraps of his old thermal clothes. And yet, no matter how warm the room became, she always seemed cold inside. One afternoon, as the sun bled orange over the ice fields, Aaron caught her staring at the horizon. Her eyes were sharp, searching. It was not the look of a child admiring the sky. It was the look of someone waiting for something. Or someone. "Lyra," he said gently, kneeling beside her. "What are you looking for?" She didn't answer. She only held her pendant tighter. "Your family?" he asked quietly. This time her little shoulders flinched like he had struck her. Tears filled her eyes instantly, and she shook her head so hard her hair whipped across her face. Then she ran inside and hid under the couch blankets, refusing to come out even when he called her name. Aaron sat on the floor nearby, silent. He didn't try to pull her out. He just waited. After a long time, a tiny voice whispered from under the blankets, broken by sobs. "Gone, all gone." Aaron's heart twisted. He wanted to say something, anything that could fix that kind of pain. But he knew words could not rebuild what someone had lost. So instead he gently reached under the blanket and held her small hand. She held his back with desperate strength, as if she was drowning and he was the only thing keeping her above water. From that night, she began to speak small pieces. Not full stories, just fragments. "Fire," she whispered one night, eyes wide open in the dark. "Running," screaming. "Cold caves, no light." Aaron listened to every word, storing them like fragile glass in his mind. Who had done this to her? Why had no one searched for her? The colony network showed no missing person report. No alien settlement had contacted him. It was as if Lyra had fallen from the stars themselves. And yet, someone must have loved her once. Someone had given her that pendant. Someone had told her she was worth saving. As the days turned to weeks, the shadows in her eyes stayed. But they began to flicker just sometimes, when she looked at Aaron. Like maybe slowly. They were getting tired of hiding. One night, as she drifted to sleep in the old bed he had cleaned for her, she murmured something he almost didn't catch. "Mama." Aaron froze. Her voice was soft, full of longing and fear. And in that single word he understood why the shadows were there. Somewhere out there, Lyra had a mother. And that mother had left her behind. The days had grown calmer around Aaron's lonely house. The stormy winds had quieted, and the sun now laid gentle orange light across the snowfields each morning. Lyra had started to hum when she worked with the garden bot, and sometimes she even chased the small cleaning drone until she fell over laughing. For a while Aaron began to think the darkness in her eyes might finally be fading, but that night everything changed. It was late when Aaron woke. The heater hummed softly, and the room glowed dim from the old lamp. Lyra was curled up in her blankets, her pendant glowing faintly near her chest. All was quiet, until the outer alarm light flashed red. A soft beeping echoed through the small house. Aaron's eyes shot open. No one came out here. Not in the dark. Not this far from the colony. He moved quickly, slipping on his boots and grabbing the old pulse torch from the shelf. His breath fogged the cold glass as he checked the screen by the door. A figure was moving outside, just at the edge of the snowfield. Tall, slow, walking straight toward the house. His heart began to race. He turned off the inside light, letting the house sink into darkness, then peered through the narrow slit of the window. The moonlight fell across the snow like silver fire, and there she was, a woman, not human. Her skin shone like faint metal, marked with old scars that glimmered under the cold moon. Her long dark hair was tangled by the wind, and her glowing eyes burned with something wild. Her body was thin but powerful, moving like a shadow made of steel. She stopped just outside the door and stood completely still. Aaron's grip tightened on the torch. He had seen many aliens during his years in the colony, but something about her made the air feel heavy. It was not just her size or her silence. It was the way the world itself seemed to hold its breath around her. Then she spoke, one word deep and broken as if pulled from the bottom of her soul. Lyra. Aaron froze. His heart slammed against his ribs. She knew the girl's name. He stepped toward the couch where Lyra slept. As if sensing the voice, her eyes fluttered open. She sat up slowly, blinking. When she saw the shadow through the window, she went completely still. Her pendant glowed brighter. Lyra. The voice came again, softer now. This time Lyra's golden eyes filled with tears. She stumbled off the couch and ran toward the door, but Aaron caught her gently by the arm. "Wait," he whispered. "We don't know who she is." But Lyra shook her head quickly. "Mama," she whispered, voice cracking. Aaron's chest tightened. He looked at the tall figure outside. Could it be true? After all this time, after all this pain, had her mother really come back? He walked to the door slowly and unlocked it. The icy wind rushed in when he opened it. The tall alien woman stood only a few feet away now. Her glowing eyes locked on Lyra, and for a moment the world was nothing but their gaze. The child took one step forward, then another, and then she was running. She threw herself into the woman's arms with a small cry that shattered the silence. The woman dropped to her knees in the snow and held her tight. She made a sound, half sob, half growl, as if holding her daughter hurt and healed her at the same time. Her body trembled like a building in a storm. Aaron stood frozen in the doorway, breath stuck in his chest after what felt like forever. The woman lifted her eyes to him. "You kept her alive," she said, her voice deep and cracked like broken stone. Aaron didn't answer. He didn't know what to say. The woman stood slowly, still holding Lyra against her shoulder. The snow swirled around them. She looked stronger now, more solid, as if her daughter's touch had brought her back from death itself. Then she spoke again, low and warning. "She is mine." Aaron's hand tightened on the doorframe. He could feel the weight behind those words. Not a threat, not yet, but a promise. A mother's promise, the kind that could burn worlds to ash. Lyra looked at Aaron over her mother's shoulder. Her eyes were full of tears, but also something like fear. Aaron's mind raced. If this was her mother, why had she left Lyra to die in the storm? Why had she taken this long to return? And most of all, would she take Lyra away again, leaving only silence behind? The woman stepped closer, and for the first time, Aaron saw how broken she truly was. Her clothes were ripped, her arms lined with half-healed wounds, her face hollow from hunger. She was strong, but shattered. She shifted her daughter gently to one arm and met Aaron's eyes. "I am Seris," she said. "And you are the one who gave her back to me." Then without another word, she turned and walked into the darkness beyond the house's light, disappearing into the frozen night as quietly as she had come. Aaron stood in the doorway long after they were gone, the cold biting his skin. He didn't know if she would come back. He didn't know if he wanted her to. But one thing was certain now. Lyra was no longer the only one with shadows in her eyes. The next morning, the snow lay untouched outside Aaron's house. It was as if the night before had been only a dream. But the small tracks in the snow told the truth. 2 sets of footprints had walked away into the darkness. One small, one tall. Lyra sat by the window, staring out at the white fields, her golden eyes unblinking. She hadn't spoken since she woke. Her little hands kept touching the glass as if trying to reach beyond it. Aaron moved around the kitchen quietly, giving her space. He didn't ask questions. He had learned that pushing her only made her retreat back into silence, but he kept watching the horizon. Part of him was sure Seris, if that truly was her name, would never return. She had appeared like a ghost, reclaimed her daughter, and vanished into the night. It would have been easier that way, simple, and yet, by late afternoon, a shape appeared on the horizon. Tall, thin, moving slow through the snow. Aaron stepped outside before she could reach the door. The cold wind bit his skin, but he didn't move. He stood firm as Seris stopped several meters away. She looked different now, though her body was the same broken frame. Something in her eyes had changed, less wild, more tired. She stood silently, holding nothing in her hands. "I came back," she said quietly. Aaron gave a single nod. Lyra saw her from the window and ran out, snow flying under her small feet. She crashed into Seris's legs with a cry of pure joy. The woman knelt down, wrapping her arms around her daughter, eyes closing as if the weight of the world had lifted for just one moment. Aaron watched them, unsure what to feel. When Seris finally lifted her head, her voice was softer. "She would not stop crying," she said. "So I brought her back." "You left her," Aaron said gently. "Not as an attack. Just truth." Seris flinched as if struck. "She was dying," she whispered. "I had no choice. They were hunting me. If they saw her with me, they would have killed her too." "Who?" Aaron asked, her glowing eyes darkened. "My people." The words carried an old bitterness, heavy and sharp. She held Lyra tighter, as if the world might snatch her away even now. Aaron said nothing more. He simply opened the door wider. Inside, Seris stood near the heater but did not sit. She moved carefully like a wounded animal ready to flee. Lyra pulled her to the table, chattering in her half-mixed words, trying to show her everything, her toys, her mittens, even the cleaning bot. Seris smiled once, just a tiny curve of her lips before the shadows returned. Later, after Lyra had fallen asleep curled in blankets, Aaron found Seris standing outside under the cold stars. She stared at the sky as if it hated her. "They marked me as traitor," she said suddenly, voice flat. "Long ago. I loved a human. They called it shame. They called me impure. When he died, they burned our home. They told me to leave or they would take the child." Aaron stayed quiet, the cold biting his skin. "I ran," she continued, "but they chased me years. I kept Lyra hidden, kept moving. Then the fire came. They found me. I left her by the storm line and led them away. It was the only way she could survive." Her voice cracked on the last word. Aaron's chest felt heavy. He had seen pain before, seen men break from loss. But Seris carried her pain like armor. It wrapped around her like invisible chains. "You saved her," he said quietly. Seris gave a bitter laugh, almost silent. "No, you did." They stood in silence under the endless stars. From that night, Seris began staying near the house. Not inside, never for long, but close enough to watch Lyra play. Aaron gave her food. She accepted it without thanks, but always left small pieces for Lyra to find as if by accident. She repaired the broken garden drone one afternoon, her long fingers moving with skill Aaron hadn't seen in years. She replaced the cracked power cells on the roof panel without being asked. She worked silently, like someone who had forgotten what kindness felt like but still knew how to build. But she never stayed when the sun went down. Each night, she walked out into the cold until her shadow vanished in the white distance. Each morning she came back carrying the same quiet storm inside her. Aaron watched her carefully. He wanted to trust her. But trust was like fire, fragile, easy to kill. And the storm inside Seris burned too hot, too wild, like it could explode at any moment. Still, there were moments. Small moments. When her armor cracked. Once Lyra ran to her with a drawing of 3 figures holding hands under a bright sun. Seris stared at it for a long time. Her hands trembled when she touched the paper. "She draws us," she whispered, almost to herself. Aaron saw something break in her eyes. Something soft. Something lonely. Then she folded the drawing carefully and slipped it into the pocket of her torn coat as if it were treasure. That night, for the first time, Seris did not leave. She sat silently near the heater, Lyra asleep on her lap while Aaron fixed a loose panel on the wall. The house was quiet, but it was no longer hollow. Aaron glanced at her once, and for the briefest moment, the storm inside her seemed to rest. The days turned slower. Softer, Seris no longer vanished when night fell. At first she lingered just outside the door while Lyra slept inside. She sat on the steps wrapped in an old blanket Aaron had given her, her glowing eyes fixed on the dark horizon as if waiting for enemies who might crawl out of the snow. Then one evening, she stepped through the door. No words, no explanation. She just walked inside, closed it behind her, and sat on the floor near the heater. Aaron said nothing. He only slid a plate of warm bread and root stew toward her on the table. She ate quietly, every motion slow and cautious, like someone who had forgotten what sharing a meal felt like. Lyra watched them both from her small chair, her golden eyes bright. She giggled softly and pushed her cup toward her mother. "Drink," she said in her new mixed words. Seris blinked at the cup, then at her daughter. For a moment her hard face softened. She took the cup and drank. Something invisible shifted in the room. By the next week, Seris had started helping around the house. She repaired the garden bot completely, making it hum and dance again with new energy. She cleaned the heater coils and rebuilt the loose door panel that had rattled in the wind since last winter. Her hands were quick and clever, moving like she was building pieces of her old self back together. Aaron worked beside her silently. He never told her what to do, never corrected her methods. She seemed surprised by that. One afternoon, while tightening the roof clamps, she asked without looking at him, "You are not afraid of me?" Aaron glanced at her. "Should I be?" Her lips curved into something like a smile. "Most humans are." "I'm not most humans," he said simply and kept working. For the first time she laughed, a short, low sound, almost startled from her own chest. It faded quickly, but it stayed in Aaron's mind long after. Lyra became their bridge. Every morning she dragged both of them to the table together. She demanded they sit side by side while she babbled through breakfast. She taught Seris how to use Aaron's old music player, then danced around the room while the two adults sat awkwardly, pretending not to watch each other. Sometimes Aaron caught Seris watching him instead. Not with anger, not with fear, something else, something searching. At night, when Lyra slept curled like a small star between them, they sometimes spoke in low voices. Not deep talks, just fragments. Seris told him how her people trained children to never cry, how silence was strength, how she had once been proud of that. Aaron told her how Earth children painted on walls and shouted just to hear their own voices. She listened like he was describing another universe. Maybe he was, but the storm inside her was not gone. Some nights she woke gasping from dreams. Her hands clutched at invisible threats, her eyes blazing like molten gold in the dark. Aaron stayed still when it happened, giving her space. She would stand trembling and slip outside into the cold, returning only when her breathing calmed. One night he found her on the steps under the stars. She was staring at the snow as if it had betrayed her. "You don't trust me," she said suddenly. Aaron leaned on the door frame. "You don't trust yourself," he replied gently. Her glowing eyes met his, sharp and unreadable. Then she looked away. "I was made for war," she whispered. "Not for this." Aaron's voice was quiet. "You're here now. That's enough." She didn't answer, but she stayed. Slowly, invisible threads began to weave between them. Seris started setting the table before meals. She folded Lyra's little blankets neatly, something she had never done before. When Aaron was fixing the water line and cut his hand, she caught his wrist gently and bandaged it with soft, careful hands. Her touch was warm and trembling, like someone touching something they feared might break. "You risk too much for us," she murmured. "You're not a risk," he said. Her eyes flickered with something, pain, maybe hope. It vanished quickly. By the end of the second week, Aaron noticed something strange. The silence in the house had changed again. It was no longer empty. It was full of small sounds. Lyra's humming, Seris's quiet movements, the soft creak of her footsteps at night. The air felt different, heavier but warmer, like the walls themselves had started breathing again. And sometimes, when Seris thought he wasn't looking, Aaron saw her watching him with that same searching gaze, as if she was trying to understand what kind of man would take in a lost alien child and offer safety with no price, as if she was trying to understand how to be part of it. One evening, as snow fell silently outside, Seris sat across from him at the table. Lyra was asleep early, The heater hummed softly. Seris broke the silence first. "She calls this place home," she said quietly. Aaron nodded. "It is." Her glowing eyes lingered on him. "She will not survive losing it again." "She won't have to," Aaron said. For a long time, Seris stared at him unmoving. Then, slowly, she reached across the table and placed her hand over his. It was the first time she had touched him without fear. That night, for the first time, Seris did not sleep near the door like a guest ready to run. She slept on the couch beside her daughter, as if she had always belonged there. And Aaron, lying awake in the chair, knew something had changed. She was no longer just surviving. She was starting to stay. The days around the small house had become strangely peaceful. Snow still fell quietly each night, covering the world in a soft white blanket, but inside the house it was warm. The heater hummed. Lyra's laughter danced through the air like bells. And Seris had stopped standing like a soldier. She moved slower now, softer. She helped Aaron fix the garden panel without wearing her armor of silence. She sat on the couch while Lyra painted messy pictures of the three of them together. She even sang, just once, when she thought no one was listening. A low, haunting melody in her language, quiet as breathing. Aaron had stood in the hallway, listening, not daring to move. It was the first time her voice hadn't carried pain. Something had shifted in her eyes. The storm was still there, but it was quieter now. One evening, the wind howled outside and the house glowed golden in the lamplight. Lyra had fallen asleep early, curled between two pillows like a small glowing pebble. Aaron sat at the table, repairing the loose strap on his worn boots. Seris stood by the window, staring at the dark. "Your people will not come for you anymore," Aaron said quietly, not looking up. Seris didn't answer right away. Then she said, "They have forgotten I exist." Aaron tied the strap and set the boot aside. "Then maybe you can stop running." Her reflection in the window shifted, her glowing eyes watching him. "Running is all I know." "It doesn't have to be," he said gently. Silence stretched between them. The wind outside moaned like a lonely creature. Then Seris turned slowly and walked toward him. She stopped just across the table. The light from the lamp fell across her face, showing every scar, every sharp line that had once scared him. But now they looked like maps of survival. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed them on the table. "You gave her a home," she said, voice low, steady. Aaron's chest tightened. He said nothing. Seris's eyes burned like molten gold. "You gave her laughter again. You made her believe she was safe. She looks at you like you are the ground under her feet." Aaron lowered his gaze. "She needed someone. She needed more than someone," Seris whispered. "She needed a father." Aaron's heart stopped for a second. Seris stepped closer. The air between them felt heavy, like the world had paused. "I have nothing," she said. "No clan, no place, no name that matters anymore." Her voice cracked, then steadied. "I am only what is left after losing everything." She reached out very slowly and touched his hand. Her skin was warm, trembling. "But you," she whispered, "you gave my daughter a home." Her voice dropped to barely more than breath. "Take me. Not as a debt, not as a duty. Take me as yours." Aaron stared at her, frozen. The words hung in the warm air like fragile glass. Seris stood very still, her golden eyes steady but full of fear. Fear not of him, but of hope. Like she had built her heart into a cage and was handing him the key. "You don't have to do this," Aaron said softly. "I know," she said. "You don't owe me anything, I know." Her voice broke then. A single tear slipped from her eye, glowing faintly as it slid down her silvered cheek. "I don't know how to live without giving something away," she whispered. "All my life I have been told I must be useful or be nothing. You made me nothing and kept me anyway." Aaron's throat tightened painfully. He stood slowly and stepped closer. Seris did not move. Her breath shook as she whispered, "Say yes. And I will stay. Say no, and I will still go quietly." Aaron gently took her trembling hands. "I don't want what is given from pain," he said quietly. "I don't want someone who stays because they think they must." Her eyes flickered, like stars breaking in storm clouds. "I want someone who stays because they want to," he said. Seris's breath caught. For a long, long time they stood like that, two broken souls holding each other's hands across the table while snow whispered outside. Then slowly, Seris sank to her knees before him, lowering her head against his chest. Her voice was so small it barely existed. "I want to," she said. Aaron wrapped his arms around her gently, like she was made of glass. Later, when she finally pulled back, her eyes were wet and soft in a way he had never seen. She lay down beside her daughter on the couch, curling close like she was part of her again. Aaron stood watching them as the heater hummed. The cold world outside howled, but inside it was warm. Something had shifted forever. She was no longer a stranger with storms in her eyes. She was Seris, and she had chosen to stay. Morning sunlight spilled across the snow like gold dust, painting the frozen world in soft warmth. The storm winds had gone. For the first time in months, the land was silent, not empty, not broken, just calm. Inside the small wooden house, peace had settled like a warm blanket. Lyra was humming on the floor, stacking colorful blocks into a crooked tower. The heater purred. A pot of porridge bubbled gently on the stove, filling the air with sweet steam. And on the couch, Seris sat wrapped in one of Aaron's old blankets, her dark hair falling loose over her shoulder. Her glowing eyes were softer now, like gold seen through water. She watched Lyra with a faint smile that seemed almost unsure how to exist on her face. But it stayed. Aaron sat at the table with a mug of tea, quietly watching them both. For weeks they had lived like this, slow days filled with small, ordinary things. It felt strange and it felt like home. There were no more alarms at night, no more sudden vanishings into the snow. Seris now stayed inside the house completely. She helped cook meals, though her sense of spice was still wild. She told Lyra bedtime stories in her own language, her voice soft like low music. She even laughed sometimes, real laughter, warm and unguarded. Aaron never said it out loud, but each time she laughed, he felt something melt inside his chest. They fixed the old solar panels together, repaired the roof, and painted the garden machine bright yellow because Lyra demanded it. The once empty house now carried small signs of life, tiny mittens drying on the heater, sketches taped to the walls, a faint smell of flowers from the pot Seris had planted by the window. The silence that used to feel hollow now felt full, but peace was not easy for Seris. Some nights, she still woke with her heart racing, caught between dreams and old battles. Aaron would find her standing near the window, staring out at the dark with trembling hands. At first he tried to speak, to calm her, but soon he learned to simply stand beside her, saying nothing, just letting her feel he was there. It was enough. Each time her breathing slowed sooner. Each time her trembling faded faster, and each time when she returned to the couch she lay closer to him than before. Lyra had changed too. The shadows that once haunted her golden eyes were gone. She laughed easily now, her voice bright and fearless. She danced around the house in mismatched socks, sang made-up songs, and declared the cleaning bot her pet monster. She called Aaron Papa one morning without even thinking. Aaron froze, a spoon halfway to his mouth. Seris watched him, unreadable at first, and then slowly she smiled. A small, real smile. Aaron swallowed hard and simply said, "Yeah, I guess I am." Lyra beamed and hugged him like she had won a war. The change between Aaron and Seris was quiet, but steady. They didn't speak about what they were. There was no dramatic promise, no ceremony, no words carved in stone. But they moved like two pieces that had finally found where they fit. Sometimes their hands brushed while working and neither pulled away. Sometimes Seris leaned her head on his shoulder while they watched Lyra sleep. And Aaron didn't move, afraid even breathing might break the moment. Once, while fixing the heater together, Seris said softly, "You make it feel like the world stopped chasing me." Aaron looked at her. Maybe it finally did. One evening, as the sun sank behind the ice hills, they stood outside together. The cold air bit their skin, but none of them seemed to notice. Lyra was perched on Aaron's shoulders, laughing as she tried to catch snowflakes on her tongue. Seris stood beside him, her hand brushing his arm lightly. Her golden eyes glowed in the fading light, not sharp, not guarded, just alive. "She's happy," Aaron said quietly. "She's safe," Seris replied. Then she turned her face toward him, her voice almost a whisper. "And so am I." Aaron met her gaze. There was no fear there now. No storm, just Series, just home. That night, when Lyra fell asleep tangled between them, Seris lay still for a long time, watching Aaron in the soft glow of the heater. "I never thought I would find peace again," she murmured. Aaron reached out and gently touched her hand. "You didn't find it," he said. "You made it." Seris closed her eyes and leaned closer. Outside, the snow fell silently across the frozen world. Inside the small house on the edge of nowhere, 3 lost souls who had once been alone now breathed together, warm, safe, and whole. They were no longer strangers. They were a family, and for the first time their future belonged to them.